I live in a dorm where a strict curfew is implemented to keep us students from partying all night. So at exactly 9 p.m., all dormers should be inside the building, or else they get locked out for the whole night. But this never really deterred a few co-dormers of mine from partying late. Numerous times, I got to see them sleeping on the front steps of our dorm as I was heading out in the morning for a run. And security isn't really an issue since the front doors of our dorm are glass, and there's a security guard from inside that gets a clear view of the front building. It was 2 in the morning, and I was just heading home from a thesis meeting with my group. Dreading the thought of sleeping outside my dorm, I pleaded for my groupmates to accompany me home, so that I had proof that I didn't go out partying. You were allowed to break the curfew as long as the reason was valid, like schoolwork. Thankfully, my groupmates obliged, and we all started walking toward my dorm. We were just rounding the corner to my dorm building when suddenly, one of my groupmates let out this blood-curdling scream. We were all shocked and snapped our head towards her only to realize she was looking straight up ahead. We all turned to see what she was staring at to find a van in front of our dorm with the side door open and 2 men carrying a sleeping dormer in between them. Instinct took over, and I found myself sprinting towards the van. Thankfully, the rest of my group followed behind me because I honestly didn't know what to do when I reached the van. Luckily, alarmed by our number and at the scream that would have been heard for miles, the men dropped the girl they were carrying and rushed back into the van before driving away. The girl they were trying to kidnap woke up at the same time the security guard ran out to investigate the commotion. It turns out, the guard was out back watching some sports reruns instead of guarding the front door, and didn't manage to see or hear the van or the men who tried to abduct the locked out dormer who was sleeping at the steps. We called the police, who told us it was probably the same people who had gang raped a college girl weeks ago inside a van that fit the description we gave. Unfortunately, with no further evidence, we couldn't trace the van. The plate number was fake, and the CCTV camera we had in front didn't capture the faces of the men.
Number 2.
When I was 14, my girlfriend introduced me to swing dancing. Every Friday night, we would go to this dance hall that was located way at the back corner of a tiny collection of offices, positioned so that no one on the street could see the hall's parking lot or entrance. All of the other businesses closed long before the dancing started, so the buildings and parking lot were completely dark and empty, and only the person selling tickets inside could see out, but rarely looked out the window. The night started out completely normal, but after an hour or so, I noticed that there was this mid-30s guy just sitting and watching. This wasn't terribly odd, as about half the crowd was in their mid-30s, and people would typically watch while taking breaks from dancing. But over the night, I noticed that he never took his eyes off of me, not once. Over a couple of hours, he never went to the bathroom, bought a drink, danced, or talked to anyone. He just sat there and stared at me. Obviously, this creeped me out, so I decided it was time to call my parents for a ride home. I said bye to my friends, called my parents, and stepped outside to the parking lot to wait for my dad. After less than a minute, the guy stepped outside. He was standing between me and the door, and on the other side, there wasn't a single person in the dark parking lot. He gave me this very creepy look and said,
How old are you?
No one was expecting me back inside, and no one was looking out the window. He couldn't have mistaken me for an 18-year-old. I was 14 and looked 12. At this point, I knew I was one more mistake from being a kidnapping victim. In a split-second decision, I darted around him, opened the door, and loudly told the person selling tickets that I thought an older man was trying to kidnap me. By the time I finished the sentence, he was gone. My father was a police lieutenant at the time, and I told him what happened when he picked me up. I rode around in his car while he and another officer looked for the man, but he was nowhere to be found. I believe that I would have been kidnapped if I had stayed still or run off into the parking lot.
Number 1.
This story is from the point of view of a female. I was working at a gift store with my mom, and every now and then people would come in and pitch a product to us, hoping we would decide to sell it in the store. One day this guy came in. He was probably in his mid to late 30s. He was short with greasy hair and a scruffy beard. As soon as he walked in, I got a creepy vibe from him. He came right up to the counter with an arm full of colorful brown glass products. And at the time, my mom was off helping another customer, so I was by myself behind the counter. He set the products down and asked for the manager. I assumed he was going to pitch this product to her, so I told him she's with a customer at the moment. Is there anything I could help him with? Hoping he would give me a business card and be on his way. I was totally wrong. All he said was, "Wow, you're really pretty." Me being a foolish young teen, I smiled and said thank you. Clearly, I should not have said anything because that seemed to excite him. He started to flirt with me and I didn't know what to say. He was making me extremely uncomfortable with every comment he made. Then things got weird. He said, "You're very pretty. Pretty enough to take home. I would love to kidnap you right now." He said this with such menacing eyes I was speechless. And my mom was nowhere near me, so I didn't know what to do. Then out of nowhere, he slams his hands down on the counter and leans in right into my face and says, "You're lucky you're on the other side of that counter." At this point, I was frozen in fear. I didn't want to move out from behind the counter to get my mom because I was afraid of what he would do if I did. Suddenly, I remembered one of the guys that worked with us was in the back room where he could see what was happening on the security cameras. One of the cameras was right next to me, so I looked at it with the most terrified expression on my face. Luckily, the guy in the back saw me and knew I was in trouble, so he came out. Now I should say the guy that came out from the back is 6'4" and about 290 pounds, big and muscular. He came up and stood right next to me and said to the creepy guy, "Is there a problem?" And with that, the creepy guy grabbed all his stuff off the counter and took off out the door. I never saw him in the store after that, and I hope I never do.